This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so commercial coverage. That's kind of what this topic is, or what the topic is tonight. If you want to register for more information, if you haven't registered yet, consider it. Go to lgdstudy.com, find the course that you're looking for. Use the PayPal link to register for the course that you want. You have access for 60 days. While you are studying, if you do have questions, reach out. Email me. I got people calling me, texting me. Not a problem. I'm here to help you pass. Even on evenings and weekends, if you email me, I'll reply because I do check it periodically. I'm still working on some changes and some updates to my website and some additional information. There is enough on my website for people to pass, but I still want to add more, and people always are asking more for more. So I'm going to get as much information as I can out there for you, all right? All right, so let's talk about commercial coverages. You've got to know the difference between a contract versus a policy. As far as contract, we got these 4 items. Contract consists of 4 items: consideration, legal purpose or legal objectives, agreement, and competent parties. The easy way to remember that is CLAC, CLAC. Now, consideration is defined as an exchange of value. Clients give 2 things of value, believe it or not. Number 1, they provide information on the application, and they also provide money, right, in the form of a premium. The company has to give something of value back, and what the company gives is a promise to pay. So it's the act of filling out the application, paying the premium for the promise of receiving benefits. That's what consideration is in insurance. Legal purpose or legal objectives, well, the reason you bought the contract is to protect against a loss. But another way of saying protecting against a loss is you cannot get a gain. So the legal purpose of the contract is to not get a gain. Right? That's what that's about. Agreement is broken down into offer and acceptance. In insurance, it's usually, if it's an agent, it's the insurance company through the agent making the offer, saying, hey, we're willing to insure you. The client has to accept that offer. And so it's offer and acceptance. Offer to insure you, they're accepting it. Yeah, I want to buy the policy. So now the client fills out the application, pays premium, gives it back to the company. This is a counteroffer. Here's the information you requested. Can you insure me at what you've shown in your proposal? And so the insurance company accepts this counteroffer. So again, there's an offer and acceptance. And then they underwrite it, and they may charge some additional premium, what have you, because of loss history. And so they may give another counteroffer. Yes, we can insure you, but we have to charge you higher premium because of previous losses. And the client would have to agree or accept it. So agreement is broken down into offer and acceptance. Both parties have to agree to the conditions stated in the contract. Right? The client has to agree to provide information, pay a premium. The company has to agree to cover them at that price. That's when we have agreement. You got to deal with competent parties. That's people in their right mind. Cannot be a minor, cannot be mentally incompetent, cannot be under the influence of alcohol or drugs, because in their judgment, impaired and legally, they cannot enter into a contract. So that's kind of the 4 items of a contract. Now, policy has 4 parts also, 4 main parts I'll start off with. The first one is the declarations page. It's the first page of the policy. Those of you that have your life license, right, that would be the same as the policy face or title page. It's just the first page of the policy tells you who the insurance company is, who is the insured, right, and some of the coverage limits there. The insuring clause basically it's part of the declaration page, by the way. It tells you what type or kind of policy you bought. So you might see insuring clause, you might see insuring agreement. It's the same thing. It just describes that you purchased a commercial property policy only. Okay, so it just tells you what type of policy you bought. The conditions clause, right, or conditions agreement, it basically details the duties and rights of both parties. A lot of times for the test, it'll spell out the obligations of each party, right? Because the client, if you suffer loss, you're obligated to provide, notice of a loss. You're obligated to provide proof of loss, and the insurance company is obligated to investigate, settle, and pay the claim. And so again, conditions clause or conditions agreement spells out the obligations of each party. Exclusions is real simple. It just tells you what the policy will not cover. Like war, act of war, nuclear risk, right? Some catastrophic losses, intentional acts, and wear and tear. Common exclusions. We'll dive into a couple more as we go through this. What's also typically part of that policy is a definitions page. So you know what bodily injury is, or property damage, or the definition of occurrence versus a definition of an accident. All right? That's usually stated in there. And then there's endorsements. Endorsements are additional charge for additional features and benefits. It's kind of like buying a brand new car and getting an options package of tinted windows, air conditioning, Bluetooth, telephone system. For additional charge, we can add that to the car. And that's kind of what an endorsement is, additional charge for additional features and benefits. All right? So we're going to run through the coverage parts. Now, a lot of times the exam will call them modules. So a lot of your online training that you went through, they call it coverage parts of a commercial package policy. The test calls it a module, or maybe if you're about two or more, it's a commercial modular policy. So watch the terminology. The test does go a little crazy with the thesaurus. Right? So if you only bought one line of coverage, like let's say commercial auto, that would be a monoline policy. Mono meaning one. So one line of coverage. A commercial auto typically is sold as a monoline policy. If you're buying two or more parts, like property and liability, that would be part of a package or modular policy. So watch the terminology, like I said, when you take the test. So there's 7 parts, right? We have property, crime, which is similar to theft on the first line side. Liability, right? There's liability associated with the business. Inland marine is kind of like floaters, increasing coverage on your personal property. Inland marine would be increasing coverage on your commercial high theft items or high ticket items. Boiler machinery, or sometimes it's called equipment breakdown coverage, it's kind of like a home warranty. So when you buy a house, you buy that home warranty that anything breaks down, you pay someone a deductible, they come out and fix it. Well, boiler machinery is kind of the same thing, but for business, covering steam pipes, steam turbines, generators, and things like that aren't covered anywhere else. Commercial auto, well, could be autos used in the business, right? Or maybe we're in the automobile business, either fixing or selling vehicles also. Okay? And then we have farm, which is kind of its own hybrid. It's a blend of personal and commercial on one policy, because on a farm, not only do you live there, you also work there. So it's a blend, right? So we'll dive into this. Common policy conditions, these are found in all policies. All policy coverage parts, I should say, are all modules. So you have the cancellation provision, which basically says, right, the first named insured has the right to cancel the policy. Right? So, and we'll get into that. First named insured is the one that controls the policy. So for a business, the named insured will be the company name, ABC Corporation. The first named insured is the individual or a person who's responsible for that policy, making sure the premiums are paid, the policy stays in force, and all that stuff. Right? So the first named insured may cancel the policy. The first named insured can make changes to the policy. So if there's a partnership, right, like Bill and Bob, right? So Bill and Bob have a company. So Bill and Bob, they're both going to be named insured, but Bill is named first on the contract. So Bill is the first named insured. That means Bill can cancel the policy. Bill can request changes to the policy. Right? So you got to understand that even though there's multiple named insured, the first one named is the one that's going to control it. Right? And it's very common to have that on the test. Examine your books and records. The insurance company can actually, it's a provision or condition, can examine your books and records during the policy period and for up to 3 years after the policy ends, in case there's a future claim that's filed. All right, so that's the examination of your books and records. Remember, current year plus, 3 years after coverage ends, they can review your books and records. The premium, well, who's responsible for paying your premium? We go back to that first named insured. That means if the policy is canceled, any premium refund will go back to the first named insured. Right? So if you do have a partnership, there are multiple partners, find out, hey, who's going to make decisions on this policy? Who, if there's something going on with this policy, which one of you should I contact? And you're going to name them first on the policy. And just let them know. That way, anyone who's, any one of your staff people that's working on that contract know that the first one named is the one that they're going to contact or reach out to. Whenever you see inspections and surveys, this deals with underwriting. Right? The insurance company may inspect or survey the company for insurability. Right? So, we're insuring a deli, and they have a meat slicer, And we want to do an inspection to see if they're following safety practices, safety procedures regarding that meat slicer type thing. Okay, and that's for insurability. Now, the underwriter may give advice, but whether the business owner follows the advice, the underwriter is going to already have a mental note that, well, maybe they don't run a safe operation. Okay. Transfer of rights, which is also called assignment. Now, what this is transferring the ownership of the policy from one party to another. So let's say we have an individual, they own a restaurant, and they have a commercial policy covering that restaurant, and they sell the restaurant. Well, rather than the new person purchasing a brand new policy, since you have a policy on the restaurant, when you sell the restaurant, why not transfer the policy to the purchaser of that restaurant so they can continue to have the same coverage? And that's actually okay to do, but you got to have the insurance company's written permission. You see, you've had experience running this restaurant for multiple years, and this is the first restaurant this person's ever bought and started to run. And so with lack of experience means they'll probably suffer more losses, which means the insurance company would want to charge higher premium to reflect that increase in risk. Okay? And so when you transfer the ownership of the policy, it's called an assignment. And in the property and casualty world, you got to have the insurance company's written permission. It gives them an opportunity to reevaluate the risk and adjust the premium accordingly. All right. Now, going back to some terms, I'm going to keep it simple. The named insured is going to be the business. The first named insured is the person who's responsible for this policy on that or for that business. All right. So there's two different people. Remember that. And an insured is anyone covered by the policy, although they may not be named. Okay, so it's kind of like auto insurance. You know, you have a husband and wife, they own a car, they're named on the policy, and they lend the car to their neighbor, and the neighbor drives the car and gets into an accident. The neighbor's an insured. They're not named on the policy, but yet they're still covered by the policy. Okay, that's how you want to know that. The parties to a contract, the first party is always the insured. The second party is the insurance company, because insurance is called a personal contract, which means it's a two-party contract between the insured, the client, and the insurer, the company. That means anyone other than the insured, the client, and the company is a third party. Now, liability claims are typically third-party claims. All right, so anyone who's not the first party, the second party is a third party, and all liability claims are third-party claims, just so you know. There's no fourth party, fifth party, sixth party. Everyone other than the insured and the insurer are third party. So there can be multiple third parties. Okay. There's no fourth party, fifth party. Keep that in mind. All right. So let's jump into commercial property coverage. All right. We have 4 cause of loss forms. Now, in the personal lines, you're typically only going to be familiar with 3: basic, broad, and special. But for commercial property, we have 4. We have basic, broad, special, but now we're going to throw earthquake in there. So as a business owner, there's actually 3 ways to buy earthquake coverage. Right? Number 1, you can see it right here, is a cause of loss form. Number 2, you can buy a separate policy for earthquake. And number 3, some companies offer it as an endorsement to your policy. All right? So cause of loss form, separate policy, or an endorsement. So basic, we know, is real simple, limited perils. Broad is also named peril, just covers more perils than basic. And anytime you see special, always pay attention to exclusion. Remember, catastrophic losses, earthquake, flood, nuclear risk, war, volcanic eruption, okay? Intentional action, wear and tear are typically excluded from the policy. All right? There's different coverage forms. So even though you buy a commercial property policy, you can get, there's actually up to about 13 different coverage forms. And so we'll kind of run through this. Builder's risk coverage covers a building while it's being built. A lot of times in the real world, you'll hear course of construction coverage. So builder's risk covers all the materials that are going to be put and installed into the building, but it does not cover the builder's tools. All right, I'll explain that a little bit later. So builder's risk just covers a building that's being built. Once the building is built, it's completed, then you transition to a commercial property policy, which covers completed buildings. Business income, that'd be great for a restaurant. If you have a fire and you shut down, we're going to pay you lost business income that you would normally earn if you were open and serving food and making money. Right? Now, business income coverage, remember, if a loss occurs, you have a 72-hour deductible. That means if a fire destroys this restaurant, you've got to wait 72 hours before we start paying you the missing business income that you would normally earn. Extra expense pays immediately at the time of a loss. And so let's say you have a newspaper, it's a daily newspaper for the local residents, right? And if you have a fire which destroys your printing press, right? Well, extra expense coverage provides money immediately to get a location, get equipment, and get up and running as soon as possible after a loss. So remember that business income coverage has a 72-hour wait before benefits are paid. Extra expenses pays immediately at the time of the loss. Now, both of these are consequential loss coverage. Remember, direct loss is direct loss, physical destruction of tangible property. Okay. And an indirect or consequential loss would be, because of this loss, we now have this additional payout. Kind of like in a homeowner's policy, loss of use. The fire destroyed the home. Loss of use covers the cost to put you up at a hotel. It's consequential or indirect. Right? You can get business income and extra expense coverage on the same building or business, or you can buy them separately, depending on your needs, by the way. Glass coverage. I got to be honest with you. Even if you got a commercial property broad or special form, it only gives you $100 per window with a $500 per occurrence maximum. Now, just looking at this picture that I have here, there's more than 5 windows worth $100 on the first floor of this building. And so that would not be enough. So by adding glass coverage, it actually covers all the windows on an all-risk basis, right? Which is better coverage. So again, these coverage forms are, people view them kind of as an endorsement to kind of add and personally cater the policy to your unique needs, all right? The condominium association coverage covers exterior grounds, the common grounds like hallways and stairways and the main structures. And then the condominium unit owners coverage covers the interior units, including your kitchen cabinets and your bathtub if you're the only condo. That means if an association has both association and unit owners coverage and you bought a condo, you only need a renter's policy because this covers the outside and inside. Now, if the condominium association drops the unit owner's coverage, then you buying the condo would want an HO6. And so the HO4, HO6 coordinates coverage with the association program, whether they have unit owners coverage or not. Leasehold interest coverage. Well, number one, let's say you have a fire and you can't go back to where you were. You've got to go someplace else. Well, you broke a lease. And so this can cover the broken lease, number one. Number two, this could also cover the increased rents because you had to go to another location in the same locale and rents have increased. Okay. And so again, for the length of time that the policy will pay for. And legal liability, of course, pays for things, losses that you are legally liable for. Not too big on the test. I doubt you'll get that. You'll see legal liability in terminology, but it's not the coverage we're talking about here, just so you know. Okay? Valuation. Under a commercial property policy, it's actual cash value on everything. Actual cash value on the building, actual cash value on your contents, business, personal property, and actual cash value for contents for others. Right? And so basically everything on a commercial property policy is paid on an actual cash value basis. And so you also have that co-insurance requirement. For most exams in most states, it's usually 80% is what the test uses, where the insurance companies require you to carry at least 80% of coverage to the value of the building. That means in a partial loss, if you insured less than 80%, you'd have to pay more of a claim. The co-insurance equation is the amount of insurance you did have divided by the amount of insurance you should have. You take that fraction, you multiply it times the loss. That's how much your insurance company will pay on that claim minus any possible deductible. Now, the exam will probably give you a specific deductible, like $1,000. If not, if it says standard deductible, the standard deductible on all of our property policies is $250. Now, there's one exception to that. A business owner policy, the standard deductible is $500. Right? So unless we see a BOP, the standard deductible is $500. All the other property policies, the standard deductible is going to be $250. Right? Now, if you do carry at least 80% of coverage to the value of the property, you get extensions for free. Right? So the insurance companies are encouraging you to carry reasonable amounts of coverage in the event of a partial loss. And if you do, we give you these extensions. The common ones on the test are the first one here, a newly acquired or constructed building. And so you have a building, you bought the building right next door. And while it's still going through escrow and everything, or it drops in your lap before you change the insurance, you automatically have coverage of $250,000 for that building. It's kind of like when you buy a new car and you have some time to tell the insurance company to add it on, that interim period, if you have coverage. Same thing here, kind of that interim period. And so not only will we give you $250,000 for that newly acquired or constructed property, we'll give you $100,000 of coverage for contents in that newly acquired structure or newly built structure. Right? We do provide some coverage for valuable papers and records, right? Very minimal amount. If you're in that business, manuscripts, maps, drawings, mortgages, you're probably going to want to get inland marine coverage. Right? And property off premises. You give your executives some equipment to take home. Something happens away from the location of the business, we'll give you up to $10,000 worth of coverage, as long as it's not at a trade show. Okay, those types of premises we won't cover. And then an outdoor sign, $2,500 for a sign that's attached to the building. If the sign is worth more than that, maybe you have electrical moving neon sign, well then yeah, you can buy sign coverage and increase the limits on that. So these are extensions, right? Kind of additional coverage, minimal limits, right? So now we'll jump into crime, right? So parts of the policy, right? So coverage A is employee dishonesty. Now this is if your employees do something wrong. Your employees steal from you, right? On the test, it says, which of the following provides coverage for employee dishonesty? And you want to look for fidelity bond first. But if you don't see fidelity bond, go for commercial crime, because coverage A covers employee dishonesty. It's realistically a fidelity bond within a commercial crime policy. Coverage B is forgery or alteration. That means some outside party got a hold of your company's checks and money orders, forged, altered them, and sent them out to other people. That's what we're talking about. See, if your employees did that, then it would be covered under coverage A because your employee was dishonest. So coverage B is outside people. Coverage C is theft of money and securities from outside people. Because if your employees were stealing your money and securities, that would be covered under coverage A. Your employee was dishonest. Coverage D is theft of inventory, like property other than money and securities. So again, from outside parties. Because if your employees were stealing your inventory, that would fall under coverage A. Your employee did something dishonest again. So remember, coverage A is your employee. Coverage B, C, and D are other people. There's two ways of writing crime coverage, right? We have loss sustained, covers losses that occur during the policy period. And when coverage ends, either it's terminated or it comes to the end of the policy period, you still have up to 1 year to file a claim, right? Or in some cases, we have discovery forms. So this is going to be similar to claims made. We cover claims that are filed during the policy period. That means some characteristics associated with that is you set a retroactive date. And even after coverage ends, there's extended reporting periods. Extended reporting periods means at the end of the policy, there's additional time for you to file a claim and have that policy covered. That's the mini tail, which is 60 days. The midi tail is 5 years, right? So those are free. The mini tail, the 60 days, is for reported and unreported losses. Once it's reported, your midi tail kicks in, which covers that claim for up to 5 years, right? So definitions that you do want to know. Theft is any act of stealing. And honestly, theft has the broadest definition. Burglary is the breaking into closed premises as evidenced by visible marks of forcible entry. So kind of like this guy's breaking into this. I mean, there's nobody there. He's just breaking into it, and he's going to damage his window as he goes in. That's what burglary covers. Covers damage to the entryway or exitway of a burglar. And that's it. The stuff that they stole is covered under the theft coverage, right? Now, if someone was there and this person's threatening them, that would be robbery. Right? So anytime on your test question, someone's being threatened to be injured or murdered and taking property from them, that's robbery. Burglary is damage to the entryway and injury of a burglar, and theft covers whatever they stole. Okay? Now, custodian versus messenger, some additional definitions. Right? So let's say you're a business owner and you're giving one of your employees the bank deposit. Now, while they are in and around the building within 100 feet of the premises, they're called the custodian, someone who has possession of company property on the premises. Once they hop in their car and they drive to the bank to make the bank deposit, or if you use an armored car service and they leave the parking lot of your business, they now become a messenger, and that would be off-premises coverage. Right? And so for crime policies, you have choice as a business owner to get on-premises and or off-premises coverage. Remember, on-premises, in and around the building within 100 feet of the premises. Messenger covers above and beyond that. Next one is commercial general liability, sometimes just called general liability. Parts of the policy, coverage A is bodily injury and property damage to others. Coverage B is personal and advertising injury to others. So let's say we did a marketing campaign which knocked our competitors and they lost money and they're suing us because they say that we made up stuff in our campaign. Well, we need something to cover that loss, and that's what the personal advertising injury is about. Medical payments to others, and since this is liability, it covers third parties. This would basically be, as a business, this would be covering your customers if they slip and fell in the restaurant. Now, with all liability coverages, you also have something called supplementary payments. Whenever you see supplementary payments, it's coverage that pays above and beyond your liability limits. So it covers like defense costs. So if someone sues you because they're claiming, they slipped and fell, but the camera clearly shows they didn't, then this can help cover the defense costs associated with that. If we need you to miss work to help deal with this case as an employee or employer, right, then we're going to pay you lost wages up to $100 a day. Now, so let's say if you had $1 million of liability and it's costing $400,000 to defend you, this $400,000 to defend you does not reduce the $1 million limit. So always keep in mind that supplementary payments pays above and beyond whatever your liability limits are. Okay? So it does not reduce your liability coverage. Just like crime, there are two ways of writing general liability coverage. We have occurrence made, which covers losses that occurred during the policy period. And then we have claims made coverage, which covers claims that are filed during the policy period. And so claims made, you have a retroactive date. That means you can set a date before you're buying this policy. We cover you from that date to today plus the next year that you bought this policy, as long as it was uncertain. You can't backdate and put a retroactive date before you know a loss is going to happen and you're going to file a claim, because it'll be researched anyway. And there's also extended reporting periods. That means after coverage ends, there's additional time for people to file a claim and have this particular policy covered. Always remember, extended reporting periods does not extend coverage. It just extends the time for you to file a claim because a loss occurred during that policy period. That's how you need to understand that. Okay. Next, we have inland marine. So those of you that have dealt with personal lines, well, this is kind of like floaters, personal article floater, personal property floater, but for a business, right? So we have filed forms, and anytime you see filed, think of scheduled. That means I need a list, right? I need to know what it is and how much it's worth, right? So remember, one of our extensions on our commercial property policy gave us $2,500 for an outdoor sign attached to the building. That may not be enough, so we can get sign coverage to increase the limits on the sign to what it's actually worth. But this also covers signs that are in the middle of a parking lot that are not attached to the building, therefore not covered by the commercial property policy. Accounts receivable coverage. I mean, if you had a fire that destroyed your accounts receivable file, that means you don't know who owes you money and when it's due, right? And how much they owe you. And so this can cover the cost to reconstruct your accounts receivable file so you can collect from the people that owe you. Camera and musical instrument dealers. Whenever you see dealers, it means we're selling. So we're selling cameras and or we're selling musical instruments. Now, commercial articles coverage is we're actually using cameras or musical instruments in the business, like a photography studio where we're actually using the cameras, we're not selling them. That's how you want to understand commercial articles coverage. Jeweler's block, well, covers jewelry, and it also covers the 3 C's at the top: care, custody, and control. Some people, they go to a jewelry store and they drop off their jewelry to be cleaned, maybe replace a stone, and they come back a week later and the jewelry store has burnt down with their jewelry in it. Jeweler's block covers other people's property under your care, custody, and control. That's basically what that's about. Furriers, think of fur coats. Right? That's what that's about. Again, those are more expensive items. So this is kind of like your floaters on your homeowner's policy, increasing your coverage on your jewelry in case something happens to it, except this is just called inland marine for business. Right? And even though they have filed and non-filed, these ones at the bottom, they're not in any order, any particular order, by the way. So contractors' equipment coverage. When you see equipment, think of mobile equipment like this forklift, maybe a Zamboni. Zamboni is that machine that cleans the top sheet of ice at the ice rink. Okay, you typically wouldn't drive it on the freeway. That's what you call mobile equipment, like a forklift. Cruise around the warehouse. You're not going to drive home every day on a forklift in most parts of California. Okay, but contractors' equipment means we're using mobile equipment in our business. Equipment dealers coverage means we're selling mobile equipment. Right. So again, keep that separate. Valuable papers and records coverage. Right? Remember, your commercial property extension only gave a little bit of coverage, but this, you want to increase it. Covers maps, manuscripts, drawings, and mortgages. Right? You can increase the coverage on that. Theatrical property coverage covers things used in a set, like a movie set or a stage, a Broadway show. It covers, the jewelry, the scenery, the props, costume jewelry, and vehicles, but only if they're used on the set. That's what that would cover. And an annual transit policy, because a lot of times inland marine covers your goods in transit. And so if you have a building, you have a business, and you manufacture a product, well, your commercial property covers that inventory while it's in and around the building within 100 feet of the building. Now, if you're putting some of that product on a truck and you're transporting it to another location to be sold, let's see, your commercial property policy covers it if it's in and around the building within 100 feet. Your commercial auto covers the truck, but it doesn't cover your product on the truck while it's being transported. That's what inland marine coverage covers. It covers those goods in transit that is not covered anywhere else. And so one of the things you got to understand is when one coverage ends, another one picks up. Okay? Now, a lot of times if you're in the shipping business, you've got to buy a policy for each shipment. But if you're shipping a lot of stuff throughout the year, you want to get an annual transit policy. Now, with inland marine, a couple things you need to know. It's worldwide coverage, okay, on an all-risk basis. The only exception is this annual transit policy. This is a named peril policy. So out of all the inland marine coverages, the annual transit policy is a named peril policy. So there's some limits on what it's going to cover. All right. All right. Next type of coverage is boiler and machinery. All right. A lot of times I associate with this, if you bought a house, you get a home warranty to cover appliances. Well, this would be the same thing, but for business. A lot of times it's also called equipment breakdown coverage. All right. So the things you want to understand about this is, number one, it's written as all risk. So, let's see, your commercial property policy, you have basic, broad, and special. Special is all risk. Well, boiler machinery is written as all risk. That means whenever you say all risk, pay attention to exclusions. The exclusions on this would be wear and tear, or the test will a lot of times call it an inherent defect. That's an exam way of saying wear and tear. Tools have a tendency to wear out and need to be replaced. This is an example of an inherent defect. Okay, that's how you want to understand that. When you pay premium for boiler and machinery, most of your premium goes towards inspections to prevent loss. So we do inspections, replace out worn out parts to keep from a catastrophic explosion or loss occurring. So again, most of your boiler machinery premium goes towards inspections to prevent loss. It also provides coverage on a replacement cost basis. Remember, your commercial property policy is actual cash value on the building, actual cash value on the contents. And so if you have boiler machinery added to that, it'll cover everything on a replacement cost basis. It's associated with the covered object. Okay, steam pipes, steam turbines, generators, and things like that will be provided on a replacement cost basis. Commercial auto coverage covers people in the automobile-related business or a company that has autos that they furnish for their employees. All right, the coverage parts, well, we have liability in case you hit someone. Remember, it covers third parties. Medical covers, well, you and your passengers in the vehicle. Uninsured motorist, again, covers you and your passengers in the vehicle because they got hit by someone who doesn't have insurance. Now, keep in mind, on the personal auto policy, liability, medical, and uninsured motorists are kind of part of the program. Your clients would have to sign that they don't want the medical. They have to sign off that they don't want uninsured motorists. But for commercial auto, medical and uninsured motorists are optional. Because if you have company vehicles, the only people using them are your employees. And if your employees are injured because someone who hit them without insurance while they're on the job, your employees would be covered under workers' compensation. That's why the medical and uninsured motorist is optional for commercial vehicles. Because again, on the job when using it, that would be workers' comp. Now, physical damage coverage. Well, for personal, we had collision and other than collision coverage. But for commercial, we have collision, right? You damage your car because you hit something. We have comprehensive, where something damages the car that's not your fault. But if you really want to go the inexpensive route, you can get what's called the specified cause of loss. So think of basic form perils, which is very limited, that type of coverage on your car. All right, like lightning, vandalism, fire. I mean, very limited coverage on the car. But of course, the premiums will be lower also. Right? So again, for commercial auto, you can cater the program to meet your needs. For commercial auto, we have symbols. All right? And so these are the most commonly used symbols that I've gotten feedback on the exam. So if you see symbol number 1, so it's the first number of the numeric system, think A is the first letter, it covers any auto. That means if you're an executive of a company and we put you on symbol number 1, basically it covers you using any auto. Your car, company car, you use an employee's car, you rent a car, unless you stole it, you would be covered under this program. 4 is owned autos other than the private passenger auto. So it's other, maybe like a truck that the company owns other than a private passenger car. So you're looking for something like that. 7 is for specifically described autos. The easy way to remember this is 7 begins with the letter S, S for 7, S for specific. Okay. And 9 would be non-owned autos. N for 9, N for non-owned. N for 9, N for non. Okay. So 9 non-owned. Non-owned autos would be actually employees using their own car in the business. So we have owned autos, which are vehicles that the company owns. You have non-owned autos, which are employees using their own car in the business. And then you might see hired auto, is where the company rents a car to use in the business. All right, so now I'm going to go back to, let's back it up. Let's talk about pizza delivery. All right, so for pizza delivery, Round Table Pizza, I'm not sure, what part of the country you are, but Round Table Pizza, they actually, in most cases, they own their own trucks. And so those are owned autos because those trucks are owned by that restaurant to deliver pizza. Domino's, the employees use their own car to deliver pizza. That's a non-owned auto. So owned auto would be Round Table, right? Non-owned autos would be like Domino's, where the employees use their own car to deliver pizza. Well, let's say the Round Table Pizza guy walks to work because it's right around the corner from where he lives to hop in the truck to deliver pizza, and their truck has broken down. So they can't deliver pizza, so now they have to rent a car to deliver pizza for that day. That would be the hired auto. All right. So you're renting a car to use in the course of a business. That's going to be a little bit different than if you have an executive and you give your executive a company car. All right? And in your policy, the commercial policy covers that executive using that company car for business and non-business purpose. But then this executive takes off and flies to Hawaii for a vacation, or flies to, maybe Austin, Texas for a convention, and they rent a car. Well, the commercial auto policy only covers the car you let them use. So if they take off someplace else and rent a car, that's not covered here. That's not a hired auto. That is something called drive other car coverage. Right? So it's kind of a gesture of goodwill that companies give their executives. So if they do want to take a vacation in Hawaii and they rent a car, they'll extend coverage to that rental car while they're on vacation. Okay. Yeah, executives get perks. How cool is that? All right, farm coverage. All right, now farm is a unique blend, personal and commercial on one plan. Because remember, not only do you live on a farm, you also work on that farm. Okay, so, and this guy's got shears. I didn't realize I was in the picture. That's too funny. All right, now it also covers mobile farm equipment like Farmer John's tractor, the combine. It covers, those vehicles, like you see the tractor next to the barn there, that are used in or on the farm. Mobile farm equipment would be like the tractor. Now, you may see a tractor on the road, but it's not meant to be on the road, and you typically don't see a tractor on the freeway. So it would not be classified as an auto. So Farmer John's pickup truck that he drives to the store to get groceries, that's a personal auto policy covering the truck. But the tractor would be farm equipment covered by the farm policy. All right. So that's how that works. All right. So again, if you want to know more, go to lgdstudy.com, register. All right. You can reach out and ask me questions also when you do register. I've got about 800 questions for the property and casualty world, online playbook of definitions of terms, some additional charts, and some other recorded webinars. Okay. So now I'm going to stop this recording for Q&A. How's that? Okay.